Okay, good morning. Welcome to the first breakout of G2I this morning. We are thrilled that you're all here. You're in the Customer Service is Broken, It's Time to Fix It session presented by 1904 Labs. This is our 5th year partnering with Gateway to Innovation. We're proud to support the organization and the tech community and nonprofit communities that they support. I'm Tim Saunders, Business Development Executive, 1904 Labs. I joined the labs 3 months ago because of the work we're doing in this customer service area that you'll hear about today. Before we get started, just a couple notes. There's a handout. There's a few handouts out there. This has some additional information and ways to get a hold of us. If we scanned your badge on the way in, you're automatically registered for a drone that we're giving away. If we didn't scan your badge, we would love to do that and enter you in the drawing, either after the session, or we have a table that's right outside the main conference area, right by the food. So you'll see us over there as well. We are recording the session. If it turns out there you have a colleague that would be interested, we'll be able to make that available to you. And then we invite you to ask questions at the end. We'll have plenty of time with questions for Q&A at the end. 1904 Labs is an IT consulting company. We build teams with startup-minded people that work on solving hard problems for enterprises, typically in the modern software, data, and decision science domains. We have a heavy emphasis on human-centered design, which means we strive to not only build the right thing for the customer, but for the human users as well. So, customer service is a hard problem that we're now working on. We see a need to help companies transform their contact center and customer service experience. Our speakers will discuss the current state, our vision to create a unified conversational customer service center, and why companies should be looking at this right now. So I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Sean Walsh and Brandon Fisher. Sean is the managing director and co-founder of 1904 Labs. He has over 30 years in the consulting and software industry, providing solutions to Fortune 500 clients in a diverse range of industries. Brandon is the director of our decision science practice at 1904 Labs. He has over a decade of experience in data and analytics and spent significant time in the marketing space before joining the labs over 3 years ago. And now I'll invite Sean to get us going.
Thanks, Tim. And you might notice I'm not Tom Thielen. Tom is our director of AI-enabled customer service. Tom got COVID last week, and he did us all a favor by not coming to this event. And so I'm sitting in for him. So I assume if you came to a customer service event, you're very familiar with this. These are the traditional ways your customers reach out to you: social, email, text, voice, and mobile chat. Today, we're going to focus on what we call the conversational customer service channels: voice, web, mobile chat, and SMS text. It's not that social and email aren't important, but today's talk is going to be focused on when your customer has decided they want to have a conversation with you and get some help. So hopefully that notion of conversational customer service makes it clear.
So let's talk about the way that customer service is possibly developed in your organization, right? If you're a customer and you want to start a conversation with a company, you've got these 3 basic channels that you can use. You can call in, talk to them over the phone, or you now could try and do some kind of a text or a message chat back and forth, right? So on the voice side, when you call in, you probably hit some kind of an IVR, some maybe multi-layered touch tone IVR. So select 5 because you want to talk to finance, select 3 because you want to talk about your bill, select 4 to check your bill balance, right? If you come in through the other channels, you'll also hit some kind of a gateway, right? A chat bot, a gateway that parses out what you're calling in about, right? Now, if we can help you with some automated pathway, we'll send you to some self-service path. And so go down this pathway, enter in your account number, this is your account balance. Have I solved your problem? Thanks for calling. If not, then you're piped into some queue where you'll wait until an agent is available to take your call. And those agents now have access to a bunch of stuff. So if they need to release a technician, they've got the workforce management platform. If they need to check your account balance, they can connect to the finance information. And so there's all these enterprise systems behind them supporting. And if you're a modern organization, you look at this architecture, pseudo-architecture, and this describes the way customer service works, you're probably pretty proud of yourself, right? You're like, look, I do all that. I check all those boxes, right? I'm good. But if we dig into that customer experience, this platform starts to break down. If you hit that multi-layer IVR, be honest, how many of your customers are screaming operator or pounding 0 right away? They don't want to go through 3 levels of gateway to get to ultimately a hold. Just put me on hold now, right? If you're doing self-service, again, be honest, does it work? How many people don't actually make it to checking their account balance or reporting some issue? They end up in queues anyways, right? And how much does the self-service match from channel to channel to channel? You can do some things in web chat, more maybe, than you can do in voice, right? Because it's a lot easier to type things in than it is to speak them sometimes, or code them over a touch tone. Then, if you make it to an agent, how often are you telling them, unfortunately, you'll have to call back between the hours of 8 and 5, because that's when our call centers are open. As an organization, if you look back, you do have 3 channels, but you have 3 different channels with the different service providers. And so not only are the features not matching and they're uneven, but you also probably have 3 different teams that are managing and operating those channels, right? And so their innovation schedules and the way that they optimize and enhance, they're not coordinated. And you can do more in one channel, or you've gone further in another. On the back end, because you have separate systems, you have a bunch of siloed, separate, very difficult to unify data. And so if you wanted to see an entire customer journey that probably spans multiple channels over multiple sessions to resolve a single issue, you can't do it. You can look at one call, you can look at one chat log, but you can't stitch those together and see, oh, this started 3 weeks ago. That's why a customer is so frustrated now that they're finally speaking to a live agent.
And you might look at all that red and say, that's a lot. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of things to do. It may say, is there ROI? And the answer is absolutely yes, in 3 ways. One, there's ROI around the customer experience itself. I don't know any company that wants to piss its customers off, but most companies are. And figuring out how to provide a better experience and more service options is a key thing for your customer. From your own operational efficiency, as Brandon talked about, you've probably got a web team, a voice team, a text team. You might have 2. You might have a web team and a mobile app team. Some companies it's integrated, sometimes it's 2 different teams. It's costing you a lot of money, and the tools that they're selecting are keeping you from integrating the experience from the customer's point of view. There's a lot of savings available there. And then finally, Brandon talked about the ability to understand what's going on. There's a huge payoff if you can integrate these channels and, by extension, integrate the data that these channels are throwing off so you can understand proactively what's going on, why people are calling you, where you're serving them well, where you're not, and then what you can do about that. And just by simply using an integrated approach, which we'll talk about in a minute, it gives you tremendous opportunities to not only change the experience, but probably be a lot more efficient internally as well.
So I don't know how to say this any other way. I've been a customer. I've called in. I've tried to web chat. After getting frustrated because I'm on hold, there's only one word in the English language that accurately describes how frustrated you are. And it's just fucked up, man. When you've gone through a process with a company and then it doesn't work, so you call back in, the fact that they don't know that you've already tried to solve this issue is the most frustrating thing in a moment where you're already ready. You're ready to quit. I'm going to pull my account. I'm going to do whatever the most egregious, aggressive thing is you can do to hurt that company, which is to take your service away. Right?
And I would say, like I said before, I don't think any company on the planet really wants to create this level of frustration with their customers. It's just systemically they're unable to do something about it using the tools and processes that they're using today.
And to level with you, like customer service has grown over time. So years ago, the only contact channel was phone. So you built large call centers staffed with lots of agents to help those calls, right? Now, as technology has advanced, you can use text, you can use the website. And so as you've grown, you've added vendors for each one of these channels. But they're not the same, they're not overlapping. They claim to integrate, but they don't really integrate the way that they promise you, right? So let's start over. Let's build a better platform. And if you're going to build a better platform, 1904 Labs believes you always start with the users, you always start with the humans. And so as a customer, you should be able to reach out on any channel. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter where it started. It shouldn't matter what your issue is. Maybe it's different. Reach out on any channel. And all of them should go to the same underlying technology. The same underlying IVA can manage your chat, it can manage your text, and it can manage your voice. And because it's the same, it has all the same feature sets. So, interacting with this bot technology, if we can self-service you, we will. And we'll do it in the most natural way, which is just use your language, speak to us, text to us, and we'll extract all the information from that message. That way, if you call in and say, I need to check the balance on account XYZ, we don't then come back and say, great, I need to get your account number. You've already got it. I already gave it to you. So extract all that information up front and then send me through self-service. And because you can capture all of that detail from what is really a conversation, then route me to the right person. Don't send me to somebody who doesn't know how to deal with my technical issue. Send me to somebody who's been trained on the technical issues and can tell me, you know what, the easiest thing to do is turn it off and turn it back on again. Let me know if that fixes it, right? Which is always the answer. Don't call, try that first. And then there's one pipe that goes out to all the enterprise systems. And so now communicating back and forth is much more simple. And we can track those events, and we can send you to all the live agents. And because I deal with data science and data scientists, what I care about is from the moment a customer reaches out until the moment their issue is resolved, I need to track every single event. I need to timestamp those. And what I really want you to do is I want you to record everything they say, everything the bot says, and I want you to transcribe that so that I can text mine it for all kinds of insights. I don't want this call may be recorded for training purposes. I want every call recorded so that I can know what people are calling about, and I can pull all kinds of insights that span across the enterprise. Now, at 1904 Labs, we partner to build this thing with AWS.
And so this is a little bit of an eye chart, but these are all the different services, and there's more from AWS that we use. But the thing I'd like you to take away from this is not a black box approach. This is an open architecture because we realize in all large companies, you probably already have a lot of things, and you're going to want to integrate this in as opposed to us as a software provider, because we're a consulting firm, telling you, hey, this is a black box solution. So we've built it on all the power of AWS, and obviously, I'm sure all of you are already familiar with Alexa and its ability to interact with you. So this is really the commercial version of Alexa technology that allows you to talk to the system and get service. And that talking can be in voice, it can be in text as well.
Yeah. And if you compare this architecture to the one that we put red all over, it's not drastically different, but it's much simpler. It's managing one technology instead of three, and it's sending them through the same pathways regardless of how they reached out.
Yeah, so what's the prize? If you decide to tackle this, first, the experience. As Brandon was talking about, you have the platform to allow you to integrate that experience. Whether your customers coming to you through the voice channel, the chat channel, the SMS text channel, or they want to use all those channels, or you want to use those channels to serve them, you can. And because it's a unified platform, you can connect to your back-end systems once to create self-service options. So you're not trying to figure out, how do I connect my web chat channel to my back-end ordering system so I can do order status over chat? You're doing it one time, and you're upgrading it one time. So you're getting a 3 or 4, if you have mobile apps and web chat as 2 different channels, you've got one integration point to your back-end systems, and you can serve across those 3 or 4 conversational channels using the same effort. Makes a huge difference. Allows you to do explore a lot more self-service options. So if you aren't running a 7/24 contact center, you have a lot more options to help people off hours. Operationally, from an operational efficiency standpoint, we talked about this a little bit, by a unified platform, if you choose to, you could unify your groups that are doing all the different channels into one group and have them focus their efforts on providing more options to your customers in a unified way, and obviously reducing dramatically the number of tools you have to use to deliver this service to them. There's no way you couldn't reduce your cost if that's your plan. If you want to cash the check as a cost reduction play, you can. But you can also cash that check as an improved customer experience play. Depends on how you want to use the money. And then finally, and Brandon has been talking about this, is the insights. Because it's a unified platform, every touch of your customer, every step in the journey that they're trying to get service from you, you're logging. And you can mine, you can understand, and at a minimum, you can understand what's going on, but over time, you can put in models to be predictive and figure out why people are calling, and maybe we ought to move somewhere else in the enterprise and say, hey, we just did a product launch and the customer service channel's lit up. What was wrong with that? What are our customers talking about? And go upstream in your business and fix those problems and not have your customers calling you or texting you in the first place. So this is a commercial for us. What are the 4 ways that when we tackle this problem for a client, how can we help them? First is in the customer service experience design. You really need to understand why your customers reach out and the way they want help from you. So we spend a fair amount of time with our clients understanding the customer profiles, the personas of the various customers, and what they need from a customer service standpoint from the company. In addition, we spend time internally with the various groups that care about customer service. So the experience group, the contact center group, any group that wants to understand why customers want to call or contact you and get service, and understand what they need from a platform like this to understand how the platform's operating and how it's going to help them do better things based on what their responsibilities are in the enterprise. So we spend a fair amount of time on the humans that are going to be benefiting from this platform. The next area is the Intelligent Virtual Contact Center, and this is where a lot of the AWS open architecture technologies. I think AWS is speaking elsewhere at this talk, but they have a very powerful platform that they've branded Connect, which is their contact center in the cloud technology. But there's tons of services around that, including Lex, which is the natural language processing. And what we've done is stitch all those services together to create an Intelligent Virtual Contact Center. Brandon used the term IVA, or Intelligent Virtual Assistant. One of our other clients calls it a smart IVR, but it's basically a conversational platform, whether you want to talk to it or chat with it or text with it, that understands in natural language what service you need so the company can help. And remember that at the beginning we talked about agent, operator. When you're in that multi-level touchstone IVR, you're much less likely to pound out of an intelligent virtual assistant if it's designed properly. And so they can stay there and get the service, or if you can't self-service them, you've learned enough about their need and you can route them intelligently to the right agent the first time.
Yeah. And it's also worth saying that an intelligent virtual agent is different than a voice call tree. So when you call in, you say you can select from one of the following, say or select, and then you list off 5 things. That's great. That's a step ahead of just touch tone. But what we're talking about is someone calls in and we say, how can I help you? And then you respond naturally with, I got this thing in the mail and I don't know what it means. It says that I owe $500. Why do I owe $500? We want to extract information from that, and then we want to direct the call based on that level of information, rather than someone going billing and then listening to a new set of options.
And then the next thing, obviously, is to build a data pipeline to make sure you can get that data coming off that intelligent virtual assistant and get it where it needs to go. Another power of working with AWS and working with a framework rather than a black box solution, you may already have, and probably do already have, a data warehouse or some type of insights platform. And so we can build that platform bespoke for this solution. And we actually have a client that said, in phase 1, we want you to build it as a standalone platform. And in phase 2, we want to point the pipes at our enterprise data warehouse because they want to pilot the solution before they put it there. But this is the power of doing this on a platform like AWS. it allows you to choose where you're going to put the data. And you don't have to say, well, I have to use the data warehouse that comes with my conversational service channel. No, you can use something if you already have it. If you don't have it, we can obviously design and build it for you, or you can build it yourself. And then finally is the Insights Interaction Hub. Once again, this is the ability to develop insights in terms of what's going on in this conversational platform. Those insights could be fed back to the customer service experience design team, because when you launch these, you will want to improve them over time so they're more responsive, they catch more customer requests, you can do more self-service. You want to feed them to what would traditionally be your contact center team so they understand what's going on. And then, as I said earlier in my comments, I think the biggest payoff long-term is to the rest of the enterprise. Because as Brandon has talked about, you're going to be able to instrument or track every single conversation and every aspect of that conversation and give insights to the rest of the organization. Why are my customers contacting me? And draw insights into there could be problems elsewhere in the enterprise that if you took action on, the customer wouldn't call you in the first place. And so that's probably a longer term opportunity because you have to gather the data for a while, but it's incredibly powerful to the rest of the enterprise to really understand why your customers are contacting you.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about customer service, customers are trying to tell you something about your business or your product. That's why they're calling. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't make sense for me. It's broken. And so extract that information as an enterprise. The example that I always give is if one person calls in and says, I just got my bill in the mail, I tried to pay it, I think my account number is misprinted, right? One person calls in, it was a error. If suddenly now you recognize we have 10 people in a row calling with this, now 20 people, you want to flag that early, and then you want to tell billing or accounts payable or whoever it is that issues and mails out the bills, you misprinted account numbers last month. We need to send everyone that this touches new bills. And you can detect that early based on customers calling and giving you that information.
So I'm going to turn it back over to Tim to kind of run the Q&A.
Thanks, Sean. So we do have plenty of time for questions, and I have a few questions that I can throw at you if nobody steps up. I guess to seed it as well, we're curious, we have a question for you, and that's where are you in your journey? Whether that's you have one channel that you're doing or independent customer channels, are you thinking about a unified service platform, actually started doing it, or are you there? So if you don't have a question, perhaps if you'd be willing to share that either here or with us afterwards, that would be great as well. So let me invite any questions. Yeah, please.
That'll be great. So I have a very small company, traditional call center, 8 customer service agents, traditional phone system, IVR, trying to get customers to the right place, but also give them other options. How realistic is it for a very small company? I mean, we're talking 45 employees, to think that an application, a solution like this would be first affordable, and what's the scalability of it if it is affordable? And then how do I begin to implement a big change in a small company to accomplish this?
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer. To be candid, there is an upfront investment in terms of understanding, doing that. When you looked at that 4-box puzzle model I showed you, you're going to need to do a little research on understanding who's calling and why they're calling you. And then whether or not we could create kind of a baseline, or somebody could create, doesn't have to be us, but create a conversational platform for you would be something we'd have to talk to you about. Because there is an investment to do this to begin with. I think over time, there are some out-of-the-box things from AWS that would be Alexa-like, if you would, that could allow you to do some things. The challenge of doing some of it and not doing it right is you could end up in a worse place than if you didn't start. But what I would encourage you to do, if you're interested, is stop by our booth, and we could talk more about it in detail. But I would think that you would want to have a fairly large agent pool to make an investment in doing something like this.
I will add, from a technology perspective, you really have multiple pathways when you engage with Amazon and their services. And one of the great things that AWS enables is there's both the code-based software developer approach to doing this, and then there's typically a GUI as well. So you can, inside their Connect platform, you can design call flows in a kind of visual way that is approachable for new, maybe non-technical, non-code. It ends up being a lot faster sometimes to write the code and deploy things that way, but it's very approachable for small organizations and for those that are trying to do it on their own.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, so first of all, we match up pretty well with your current solution diagram if you eliminate the chatbots. So we have most of that in place, but no chatbots. My question's about one of our challenges that we typically see is with voice recording, particularly when multiple transfers are involved. So I wonder, one, if you have a solution that you typically recommend for voice recording, but secondly, your transcribe bullet kind of caught my eye. In your experience, is it possible to effectively transcribe a conversation with a customer that starts with chat and ends with a voice agent into a cohesive whole?
Yeah, so what's great about the platform that we've developed is every single event is timestamped, and then it's connected with an ID structure. So you get session IDs, you get contact IDs, which are kind of larger, and then you get customer IDs and phone numbers that they've used. And so you can link all of that back. You can understand what channel, you can understand the exact timestamp that it happened on. Those timestamps are all synced to the same epoch so that you don't have to reconcile them across multiple time zones and that kind of a thing. And so we can stitch together multiple pathways. The transcription services, it's I'm not gonna say it's perfect. It gets better, all the time. But yeah, I mean, it does a pretty good job. We use this platform for our own call center. So if you wanted to call 1904 Labs, you would hit a bot that we've named Wally because his Sean Walsh, so he gets the bot named after him. And so if you call in, you say, I want to know where 1904 is located. 19, the number, that gets transcribed well, and then OH gets transcribed. And then when you squish 4 and labs together, sometimes it gets it, 4 and labs. Sometimes it gets FORE, sometimes it's FOUR, sometimes it's FOR. So the transcription is transcribing the utterance that it hears, which may not always be exactly what the person is trying to communicate, but the transcriptions are pretty good. And you can read it as a human and understand what they were getting after. And as you're reviewing these logs, you can go in and teach it to transcribe better. So you can call out, if you hear something like this, write it down as 1904.
Well, and one of the things, one of the clients we're working with right now is using a service from AWS called Contact Lens. And it can look at an audio file and it can transcribe that audio file. And the way they're going to use it is, and if you remember that black part of the diagram I talked about, the customer service experience design, even if you aren't, doing legacy contact centers, as long as you have call recordings, that can be very useful to be transcribed and try to figure out why do people call? So as you're starting to build this new infrastructure, the one thing you do have to figure out is how to take the PII information out of those calls, and so they're working on that right now. But it's a very useful tool, once again, and one of these spin-up services from AWS that can be used on a piece-part basis to help you assemble this. And so, but you do need to do design work. I mean, it's not magic.
Thanks, Carrie. Another question? Yes, please.
How much of the transcribed text is plugged back in to provide some kind of predictability, like if the customer calls back in and the system realizes that they had previously chatted and now they're calling in and it says, hey, are you still having issues with your bill or whatever wasn't flagged as being resolved on a previous call?
Yeah, so a lot of that information is captured and can be served back up to an agent. So an agent can see historical call-in issues and resolution status, and so there's that knowledge base that gets served up to the agents inside the call center. That's one of the services. And then otherwise, you can create, because it's Amazon, you can create your own functions and your own process inside this call flow so that those pieces of information are captured and then they're available as the call progresses forward and as the issue progresses forward. So some of it you might want or need to customize, and it'll be specific to what your business is and what information you want to grab. Otherwise, a lot of that information is served up in the knowledge base to agents, and it's captured throughout the call natively.
And when we showed you the self-service, the intelligent virtual agent can also interrogate those systems. So as the call's coming in, they can be doing an interrogation on, hey, they pick up the automatic number identification or whatever the technique you use to authenticate who's coming in and identify them. And they can be pulling that information forward and telling the caller, hey, I see you called us yesterday, you're calling us again for the same problem. And once again, it's that integration across the channels, or you chatted with us yesterday, and assuming the company is logging those, they can be made available to the intelligent virtual agent to make a much warmer kind of experience for the customer coming in. And once again, that gets to the idea that I'm not going to pound out if you're helping me.
Right.
If you're not helping me, you're trying to corral me as a horse and put me in a thing, I'm going to get out of there and I'm going to go to the agent. But if you're helping me in a conversational way, get the service I need, you're probably going to stay in that experience.
I mean, as a customer, think about how much better you feel and how much better your experience is if I, as a company, preempt your problem for you. You've called in and you're ready to scream, but the first thing you hear is, hi, Brandon, thanks for calling in. I noticed your account status is marked as this. Is that why you're calling in today? And it's like, oh my God, okay, yeah. I was going to yell at you, but now I want to know where this goes.
Could you go talk to the IRS?
I could.
Thank you. Please.
Differentiates this solution from like a Genesis or a NICE platform or a Five9 platform that's already sort of a baked environment?
Well, one thing I would say about AWS Connect is the platform, and it's a next-gen capability. All of those companies are good companies, but they're coming from an on-prem environment. And so they're taking that, in my view, they're taking that to the cloud, but they're living with some of the things they had in the past. And we're not a Genesis or a Avaya or whatever provider. We're partnered very closely with AWS. And so all I know is what our clients are telling us, that it's a lot more modular and more flexible. Now, it doesn't mean people won't choose Genesis or Five9s or whatever. But one example we got from a client recently was Five9s is partnered up with Google to do the voice, because Google has voice as well. But some of it's Google and some of it's Five9. AWS has the entire suite of capabilities that we need as an integrator to create an integrated solution. So those are all good companies, so I'm not trying to disparage any of them, but we partnered with AWS because of how flexible and how fast they innovate. What they have today versus what they had 12 months ago, I mean, it's unbelievable how fast they're moving in terms of creating new capabilities that somebody like us can use to create an integrated platform like this.
I mean, Amazon runs the internet. So in terms, you can go with a fully baked solution and they work well. There's no issues to point out. But if there's a lot of other things that you've built or that you want to tap into or that you want to be integrated with, Amazon already has existing connections and integrations to all those things. If there's anything that Amazon does well, it's integrate. They do a lot of things well, but that's one of the big call-outs.
Thank you. Please, in the back.
So two questions. First one is, can you share any kind of maybe results from some of the tests you run, like the comparing the traditional systems and the solution you have? And what kind of improvements did you get for your clients in terms of NPS scores or some other metric? Did you do some control experiments to compare what kind of improvements the system actually delivers to the clients? And the second question I have is, in terms of the data science solutions, is this a solution that is customizable, and do you rely on internal data science teams of the companies that you work with? Because each industry is different. Like sometimes subject matter expertise is extremely important to kind of decode those codes, especially in medical sciences and like healthcare. So how do you kind of like customize your solutions across different industries?
Do you want to handle the data science first, and then I'll?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So to your second question, I'll jump on that one. So when you build this platform, you're not given access to change and tune Lex. Lex is, as a service, just exists, right? But what we've designed as part of our Insights platform is a learning and tuning approach. So what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to look at what individuals have said and match that to what Lex heard. And you want to be able to identify times when it got it right or got it wrong. And you want to measure that with typical ways that you would approach classification model scoring. So you're looking at precision and recall and all those assessment scores. And so now you can identify specific areas, specific topics, specific themes by doing NLP, NLU process on top of the transcriptions to see, and also the recordings to see, okay, Lex isn't hearing this topic, this theme, this word well. And the way that you teach Lex to identify these things is you provide it sample utterances that it should listen for or look out for. And so what we have learned in the past, what we've seen is, okay, we need to change one of the utterances that Lex listens to. Instead of it just being the numbers 1904 labs, we need to make it the word 19, the word O, the word for labs. Now it can map that to wanting to know about our business and our solutions. And so you have to do an analytics, you have to do a data science monitoring process to identify those issues, and then you can improve Lex to get it right.
And then back on the customer front, we've got a couple engagements going on right now that we're under NDA. You might imagine this customer's investing in this, guard what they're doing. But I think we'll have a couple referenceable in the fall. So if you want to connect with Tim, we'll put you on a list, and we can reach back out to you when those customers are ready to talk, and we'd be happy to have you talk to them directly.
Thanks. Yes, please.
Is it possible to give a very high-level background on the technology used to solve the challenges you just brought up, or the AWS services you have used?
In terms of monitoring the Lex model itself or the whole platform?
The whole solution.
You want to go back?
Yeah, let's go back a few slides.
We have these here. We can probably talk to you about what each one of these are being used for, the ones down on the bottom.
I'll talk through it and fill in anything that I skip over.
Okay.
So depending on the different channel, you'll be piped to, so Connect is the overarching umbrella for a lot of these channels, specifically voice, but also I guess some of the other channels can flow through Connect.
Yeah, I mean,
as well.
Connect is the umbrella cloud-based contact center technology from AWS.
Inside Connect, you build what are called Lex bots. So that's kind of the automation end of what is the Lex bot listening for. In terms of routing and the IVR, the tree, those are established using this concept of intents, where you determine, you can say billing as an intent, or for if you called into 1904 Labs, you can ask about building access and parking, and these are intents. And then to inform that intent for what it's listening, you provide it with utterances is the way that it works. On the back end, Kinesis is the fire hose, the data stream. You can grab data which is captured in log files, so you grab that out of CloudWatch and then out of the specific tools as well, so you can grab it from Lex. The Lambda functions, that's for the automation end. And any kind of connection that you want to do would typically be written through a Lambda function. And then data is dumped from the Kinesis stream to S3. You can query against that using Athena. Transcribe is the technology that changes voice over into text.
In the interest of time, I think one of the things we're actually looking for is webinar topics that people might be interested in. If you have interest in, we would be happy to do a webinar or a lunch and learn around the technical architecture that underlies this functional architecture. Once again, reach out to Tim, and if you have interest, because I'd be interested in having us do that as well.
Yeah.
Because, as I said earlier in my comments, the reason we partnered with AWS is the flexibility, all of those services plus,
Right.
that allows us to build a framework-based solution that can be plugged into the typical enterprise, as opposed to a black box. Hey, we have this, now you have to figure out how to do it. This is really a modular approach, and we don't have to do it all. I mean, depending on what you're currently doing, you may have another provider doing part of it. We can say, okay, how do we build you this platform using what you already have? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thanks. Yes, please.
Yeah, so for the sort of omni-channel approach where you have voice, chat, different inputs, are you able to build agents that support multiple channels, or are you building a specific agent per channel? Just how reusable are things across channels?
They should be fully reusable. We had a question that came in before the talk, so I'm going to answer that question in concert with your question, is where would you start? And the clients that we're working with are starting on voice, because voice is the most complicated channel. Humans talking, wanting to get help. They don't all say the same thing in terms of, hey, I want help with my bill, but they say it many different ways. Once you have it built, the intelligent virtual agent up there on the right, for voice, then you can move over and plug it in for text and web chat. There may be some nuances in the experience design that you have to deal with, because when somebody's coming at you on a text channel or on a web chat, you may not talk to them the same way on voice, but it's going to be pretty consistent. But you'd start with voice, and the client we're working with right now, that is their vision. We're going to help them get this up and running in voice, and then they're going to move it over to web chat, mobile chat, and SMS text. Because the payoff is then you have one team and one technology platform serving these three conversational channels. And so as you evolve what you need to help your customers with, you're doing it once. And you're connecting to your back ends once, as opposed to connecting your voice channel, your web chat channel, and your SMS text, doing it 3 or 4 times. And it just gets in the way of going fast and being able to do it cost effectively. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and to layer onto that, when you think about it from a technical perspective, a lot of the self-service work that you're going to do, since you're writing those self-service executions as Lambda functions, what that Lambda function is looking for is a set of inputs so that it can execute, right? And so whether you bring those inputs from chat or text or voice, it doesn't care. And so that Lambda function can be reused in any stream now. As long as it's provided its input, it will execute its process.
I think we've got about 2 more minutes, maybe the last question, please. Yes.
Curious, how have you guys dealt with change management? Are you seeing your clients go like all in when they make this cutover, or are they finding a way to steer a certain amount of traffic to sort of make sure that the system is working once it goes in production? What does that look like?
Yeah, in fact, I'm going out to LA for a client this afternoon, and that's one of the biggest questions. If you think about how you cut over websites, it's similar in terms of A/B testing and having kind of a rheostat to say, okay, and that's another value of the AWS Connect platform. You can direct traffic in an A/B way, and so you've got a new intelligent virtual agent. You're not going to throw 100% of the traffic on it, but you flow 1%, 2%. This particular client, I think they have anywhere between 7 or 8 million calls a year. I mean, it's pretty high volume, but they're going to put a little over there. We're going to monitor the heck out of it, calling testing and tuning. And if we have to fall back because something isn't right, and then over time, using the customer and operational insights, it'll be pretty clear when the IVA is ready to go into production full time, and then you can turn it on. That answer the question, Andy?
Yeah, and there are many things to consider when you decide where to put that gateway. So what you don't want is a customer to call in one time and get this smart IVR and enjoy that experience, and then call back for another issue and go back to the old pathway and be confused as to what happened to the experience they loved. So you might have to put multiple gateways. One that says, have they been directed here? In the future, we're going to keep directing them down this pathway. You may not want to split traffic right away. You might want to test specific components. And so you might split traffic later on after they've made it through the existing phone tree into a self-service path, and then it's, let's try self-service with voice rather than self-service with touch. And you have the flexibility to do that inside the call flow.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thank you all for being here today and for the great questions. We'd love to continue the discussion. There's my contact info up there. Please join us at the booth afterwards or anytime today. And thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of the conference.